Hello and welcome to Growin Up Gaming. On today's episode, we are talking all thing Baldur's Gate 3. So, most things Baldur's Gate 3. Sorry. So, as always, I am your host and moderator, Mike, and I am joined by the one and only, the beautiful peacock, Mr. Brandon. That's it. That's your peacock.
That's like, yeah. Well, if technically it'd be like,
all right, you're not even noise. All right, fuck you. And we have the platypus himself, Mr. Erik.
I don't know what noises platypuses make.
And myself, the mighty muskrat Michael. And so again, we are going to review Baldur's Gate 3. I have not played it, but Brandon and Erik have definitely spent some mighty and
Michael has already made a mistake.
Amount of hours. So with that, before we jump into it, Baldur's Gate 3 is the third installment of the Baldur's Gate series. It is made by Larian Software, and boy, oh boy, is it getting positive reviews, gentlemen. Currently on Metacritic, it is sitting at a 96 on Metacritic from the Metascore.
But dick, Zelda.
But Brandon, it is sitting at an 8.9 on the user score, generally favorable. So I'm sure
too many mics played it.
Absolutely. I'm sure you guys will get into some of that side.
I played it for 3 hours and I couldn't get into it.
Also, Brandon, fuck you. Tears of the Kingdom also sitting at a 96. So
oh shit, I thought it dropped lower.
No, Never mind. The user score of Tears of the Kingdom 88.3.
There you go.
Really?
Yeah. I actually I agree with
I'm
that.
not surprised at all.
I'm not either. But on Steam, it's like on Steam, Baldur's Gate 3 is like wildly crazy. Like overwhelmingly positive. It's at like a 96% of all the reviews are overwhelmingly positive.
It's already modded to shit.
Wild.
Which the mods for this game would be outrageous. I'm so ready.
Yeah, I wish I was playing it on PC.
Mm-hmm. So that is everything. That is all that I will be bringing onto this conversation, gentlemen. So I will leave it to both of you to discuss and leave your reviews.
But Mike, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you be sure to let us know.
How many elves did you have sex with?
Oh, buddy. There are not numbers on that dice for how many.
1.
Exactly.
Half elf.
Oh, you did Shadowheart too?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We're Eskimo brothers now.
I'm going for everything I can.
I will end both. Yeah. All right, so Brandon, Erik, you guys decide upon yourself. Give us a bit of a rundown of the general overview of the game, and then again, go wild, have fun, African Lion Safari. Let's do it.
All right, man. How
Baldur's Gate 3.
How do you feel about swimming into these waters for your first little beak dive into this?
I will. I'll wade on the surface and dive down if I see anything tasty. But Baldur's Gate 3, it's Dungeons and Dragons. It is choice based. Anything you want to do, you can do. The dialogue, practically anything you'd want to say in a scenario, you can say. Right? It is roll the dice and see how it works out for you. It is, if you've played D&D, it is D&D, but the game. It's incredible.
Oh, fair enough. And that's the thing. So I will definitely chime in here and thinking that I think D&D gets a bad rep for the mass community. There is a huge subculture that loves fucking D&D, and it is for a good reason, because it is fucking epic. But a lot of people think D&D, and that's like too nerdy. That's one of the things I've heard from a lot of people talking about this game, where they're kind of like, like they don't want to admit that they do it, but like, no, it's fucking awesome. So let's look back at the history of this. Dungeons and Dragons, Baldur's Gate 1 comes out for PC. It's a great RPG. Everybody loves it. It's a great game. No comments. Not the best game of all time, but it's good. And then you go into Baldur's Gate 2, and oh my God, it breaks the mold. There's nothing better. It's the best game that ever happened.
Why is Donald Trump reviewing Baldur's?
Because he needs to make RPGs great again, Mike. That is why. But Baldur's Gate 2 came out and just broke the mold. People are like, this is the fucking greatest RPG that has ever been made, ever. That was a long time ago. Over a decade now.
Almost 20 years, I think, wasn't it?
I don't know.
Like 17,
Actually,
18
you might.
years.
I'm on it.
Actually, you might be right.
I'm on
To
it,
be
gang.
honest, I think
Keep
I was
going.
in grade 7 when my friends were playing it, so that's a long fucking time ago. But either way, broke the mold. Incredible. Now Baldur's Gate 3 has been in works, been in talks. The lead ups to this game were like, well, it has more cinematic scenes and dialogue options than the entire 8 seasons of Game of Thrones, which is fact. So,
Which to anybody listening, you will not get that in one playthrough. You will not get that in 10 playthroughs unless you do every different class. Like it's not like you're
mhm,
going to be bogged down with all of that dialogue, with
that
all
is a
of those
very important
cutscenes.
thing to note. 100%. Just
But they're there.
exactly. The depth of this was so big. The ambition was ginormous. And guess what? It fucking landed.
Paid
Like
off.
it's like it's incredible. This game, as we talked about, there was no spoilers. At the beginning of this, we talked about how widely revered this game has been. We even had announcements from other studios. I can't remember the specific one that did this tweet, but they literally came out and said Baldur's Gate 3 should not be a measuring stick for
You
future
can't
RPGs
hold us to these
because you
standards.
can't hold us to these standards. They are way too high because it is so goddamn good. So
Yeah.
the big thing is we are just off the bat, we know from everything we've said before we've even gone into the mechanics, the characters, the story, the graphics, anything like that. This game is top tier God mode for RPGs. But that
Absolutely.
being said, as Mikey even pointed out, this does not appeal to certain people. Some people do not want to play endless hours of this. They do not want to have like
Personal
50 different
choice.
starting options or personal choices like crazy. But we also saw from Mass Effect that personal choice is something that people do crave in RPGs. People want to see
Right.
real world consequences that makes their game feel more special.
I
Much
think
like
that's what a
also
lot of
Mikey
people who
complained
play
about with
RPGs play
Spider-Man.
them for.
Because it didn't feel
Ass.
special enough. And now guess what? This is
Too
like
linear for you, Mike?
yeah, this is I was about to go way too dark. This is super special. Let's go with that. This is like your playthrough is your playthrough. And you have like 10 different 10, 15 different avenues realistically where you could go where the game will feel completely unique to you and your experience. And to
Right.
get that type of versatility out of a game is outrageous. Like so good. The replayability is unreal. And like as you've seen in the video here, just with the character creation, you have
Mhm.
you have tons of different races that you can play as that are widely different. And within that, you have like 12 different classes of different characters that you can play. So right there, we're already talking like dozens of options. But then the thing is, once you get into those subclasses, you are going to be opened up to 3 different
Oh
subclasses
my
in those
god.
classes
Kill
that
me.
are like completely different. And they're not just like minor, like some of them overlap, obviously. There are some spells and skills that overlap, but they do play wildly different. So
Of
like
course.
your character will play so differently, not to mention as you can also see, the stats in D&D. If you go super heavy into charisma, for example, you'll be able to talk your way out of boss fights. Like if you just want to not do combat and you just want to be a sly motherfucker, you could literally talk a boss out of fighting you and like taking them to bed, as opposed to like actually getting
You
into a bloodied fight.
you could
You could take
talk
a goddamn
armies
bear to
out
bed.
of going into combat.
So Brandon,
Yeah.
Brandon, sorry. So does that come down? Okay, so there's the race and there's the class, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
What is the difference of races? And then I'm guessing like do all of the classes remain the same? Dependent, like it doesn't really matter. Like if you're a half elf and a wizard, or if
Mhm.
you are this dinosaur creature in a wizard, like what's the difference?
So different. Yeah.
Okay.
No, so each
Well,
race has biological passives that do cater themselves better to certain classes.
Okay.
Anybody can be anything they want and still succeed, but like for example, like a half elf would be more aligned to something as a hunter or mage because they have natural innate abilities that aid themselves to that path.
Gotcha.
But at the same time, you could also just be a badass warrior that dabbles in that. Like there's no wrong answers, but there are right answers, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah,
right.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like you
Uh,
could be a halfling barbarian if you wanted to be,
mhm.
but a half orc barbarian has, like Brandon said, better passives that make that a more viable choice.
Gotcha.
But
Mhm.
ultimately, unless you're min-maxing, trying to get the most DPS out of the character you're building, every combination is viable. Every
Yeah.
combination is playable. You're just making the game a little bit harder for yourself depending
Gotcha.
on what you choose.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Continue on,
Exactly.
gentlemen.
And even like for races, like different races will like be respected or treated differently in different communities throughout the game. So like for me, I'm a huge like Drizzt Do'Urden fan. So that's Dark Elf Ranger. So I made Drizzt Do'Urden fucking Dark Elf Ranger. And you go into a community and they're like, oh god, a dark elf. Like, whoa, are you gonna steal my shit? Like, and it's just like super racist. And they're just like, they do not trust you, they don't like you. And then you have to basically earn your keep the whole way because they're just like,
Mhm.
oh, dark elves in D&D live underground and steal your children and like are demons basically. And I'm like,
So you.
but yeah,
Basically,
no, Drizzt Do'Urden is a heart of gold. uh, but like also can fucking slap because he's a dark elf and like summon eternal darkness to blind you and just murder the fuck out of you. He's
actually, that
so
being
good.
said, Brandon, about like how certain people will react to your character, did you know that you can, if you choose to control one of your party members and then enter dialogue with somebody else, you get different choices, different options
I did know
that are
that, yeah.
available to you. Yeah.
And
So
that is
you don't
that,
necessarily have to get that racism slapped in your face. You can
no, and
be
that's a
be a
big thing to note.
complementary race, right?
Yeah, and that's a really big thing to note because at the end of the day, your character will be super unique to you, but you have in the very intros of the game, you're going to have options of like five
Five or
different
six,
party
yeah.
members. So you can, like Eric said, if you want to pick someone who's an absolute blubbering idiot that has no charisma, cannot talk to a spoon without it trying to kill him,
Mhm.
and like is just a god though of strength and is just a big dummy. But then you have like one of the other characters that you have from the beginning that's an amazing like silver tongued like person, and you can make them your lead character that you go into conversations with. And you could or if you're going into an like a arcane temple, you could just switch to your mage, go in with your mage first, and then they are going to see things that you don't or wouldn't have seen before, because in this game there are passive checks that happen every few seconds that are basically like dice rolls behind the scenes based on your stats, abilities, and your affinities for religion, charisma, durability, all this other shit. Like there's like fucking 20 different skills. So like if you don't know anything about religion and you walk into a church, your buddy, like your character's gonna be like, oh, you failed the religion check. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna step on this thing because I don't think it means anything. And then they're like, oh, you fucking monster, like you stepped on our sacred rock, and they're gonna try and kill you. But if you go to someone else that's a religious expert, they're going to see this sacred rock like, oh, that tracks back to the Arcanic period, and that this does this, and that this is a sacred thing. And then by you stepping around it, they're going to see you as an ally, and they're like, oh, why don't you come to our secret underground bunker and take some of our riches? And like,
Cool.
you never know.
Yeah.
Like D&D
Yeah.
is just fucking wild of
Yeah,
what you can do.
some of these passive checks will give you additional lore. Sometimes they'll give you, like Brandon is saying, certain circumstances you wouldn't otherwise have been able to appreciate, right?
Very cool.
Mhm.
Like whether it's maybe you have a party full of people with bad investigation checks, and so there are treasure chests that are buried throughout the lands that you will never know are there. But if you have good investigation, you will potentially see that chest depending on your role, right? It's
Mhm.
all still there's all still a level of randomness to anything that can happen because it is based on a dice roll, like a literal, not figurative, a literal dice roll
Yeah,
for every
dice show
single
up on the
thing that can
screen.
happen in the game.
Very cool.
Yeah, and it goes
Which
past that
which which
though.
makes the game so unique for everybody playing. No playthrough will ever be there. No two playthroughs will ever be the same because every dice roll is going to be different.
Mhm. And according not just the dice rolls, the other thing that goes there is that like massive sections of the games and like characters that you'll meet will either become friends, foes, lovers, everything based on the rolls of the dice and the characters that you're playing. So like there are characters in the game that are playable characters that you could incorporate into your party for the entire time, that have whole like 10-hour side stories with character development, everything. Or if your personalities just don't match, you fight them and fucking kill them and then they're gone, and you still have 100 hours of gameplay before you. So
As
That's
what
wild.
one thing I didn't realize, though, like we talked about at the beginning, was that one of the problems I had with the game, not problems like personally with the game, but one of the mistakes I made, that's a better way of saying it, is that I tried to do this as I normally do and do a completionist, where I go to every corner and I try to do everything in every single corner of the map. And then you quickly realize, like, the fuck you are. Like, there are
Right.
brick walls. Like, you chose to talk to this person in the last town. The fuck you're going down this street because this person's going to kill you. You have to go to this street and follow this quest line. So you
Yep.
have like 5 different unique storylines that you could follow throughout the entirety of the game and get completely different experiences with different characters. So like the replayability on this game is
It's
almost
nearly
too
endless.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
exactly. Like as much as you might get similar results, but how you get there is going to be so drastically different. Like I remember I went down the street like in one of the first areas. I went down like this little street. I went down this pathway. I walked through this bog and like investigate this flower. And then one of my guys passes a stealth check and realizes that there's a fucking like demon cloaked 2 feet away from us. And then we enter into this shadow realm. And then next thing you know, there's this whole army of fucking like demons around us that are like surrounding this building. And like they're just like you could have just walked past that. You would have never seen it. And now I've gotten into this massive battle, and like there's a whole separate like area with this vampire hunter and like all this other shit. I don't know. It's so cool. Like it's just it's outlandish at how widespread this can be, but not in an overwhelming way that you feel like overwhelmed by the story and the options. But you just kind of have to choose a lane and stick to it and just see what happens, and you're
Yeah.
gonna get an amazing journey.
Brandon, to
Yeah,
put it
it's wild.
to put it
Yeah.
into perspective, I just had a quick Google search online. Guess
Mhm.
how many endings there are?
For Baldur's Gate,
Yeah,
15.
there are
30.
there are a total of 17,000 endings. depending on like all again your choices, your
There you go.
nature, your character, your
Yep.
race, your actions, your everything.
Mhm.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I don't know if it was Brandon or our friend Erik I was talking to about this, who we essentially played the beginning of the game very similarly.
Mhm.
And it goes on to like if you are playing 2 playthroughs and you're trying to play them exactly the same, you might not get the same outcome. Like I have 2 party members who wanted to start beefing in our camp.
Oh yeah.
In my game, I was able to roll high enough. I don't know if it was a charisma check or if it was like deception or something. Whatever it was, I was able to keep them from fighting each other. Our buddy Erik, these 2 characters ended up fighting and one of them died. And that's just one of your party members is gone now. I because of the way that my dice rolled, I didn't know I could actually lose a party member in that moment, but he did.
Very cool.
Like
Mhm.
it's
And the thing is,
anything can change the game.
it's not like Mass Effect. Like I've addressed this before,
Mhm.
where like a character dies, like, oh, I lose a romance option or something. It's like, no. Like with some of these characters, we're talking about 10 hours worth of story of like
10 hours longer even with with
and
how
some of
some
them,
of
yes,
these
definitely
quests go.
longer.
Oh yeah.
Like especially some of the 2 characters you're talking about that I'm aware of, those stories carry throughout the entire game. They have long-standing impact on how different people you meet in the future even will dictate. Like if you interact with a god in the future, and like one of those when your party members is a sworn member of that god's sect, and like that god sees that person, loves them, respects them, whatever, if they're dead, you're fucked. Like that's God's. They're not
Right.
gonna do anything to you. It's a totally. You've turned a great ally into a enemy. Like the possibilities are so. Well, now we know 17,000 endings.
Now,
Like,
all of this to be said, like coming in as an RPG fanatic, this is what I've always wanted from an RPG. Like you look at Lionsgate with Fable, a game that gives you a lot of choice. You can choose to be a good guy, a bad guy. You can interact with people however you see fit. You can kill a lot of people that, you in a normal game you wouldn't otherwise be given the option to remove from the game. And you look at, like Brandon suggested, Mass Effect, another series of games where choice is such a vital part of how the game grows and builds and who your character becomes and just how the game progresses around you. This game, everything is a choice and almost everything can be done or not done. You want to kick a squirrel into a tree and have it blow up, you can kick a squirrel into a tree and have it blow up. You want to talk to that squirrel to see why it's getting all in your face, you can talk to that squirrel. You want to rob a shopkeeper, you want to pick his pockets and steal all of his stuff. If you roll well enough, you could steal everything out of his pockets. One bad roll, though, and you could be a very proficient thief, but one bad roll, and now he's going to fight you. But does he necessarily fight you, or could you talk your way out of that? Okay, you fail to talk your way out of it. Now you're fighting the whole town. Now everybody in that town is against you, and you can't shop there anymore. You can't really progress down that storyline anymore because you had to kill everybody in this town.
Yeah.
Like everything's a choice.
Okay, cool.
mhm.
Everything's an option.
All right.
It is wild, and that's why one of the things that comes up with Baldur's Gate for me, especially too, I'm accustomed to RPGs. I was absolutely overwhelmed at the beginning with all the intricacies in the system
Definitely.
because of all the skill points, all the different things that we talked about, and how they affect your stats. And I have to say, my boy Fextra Life over on YouTube is a godsend for introduction videos on YouTube, because when you start this game, you're going to feel like a knob. You're going to
Mhm.
just question your existence. And you could even end up not enjoying the game because you're just so overwhelmed with all the systems
Mhm.
that it's trying
Yep.
to throw at you at the beginning. Fextra Life does a
Absolutely.
really good job of a beginner's guide on showing you the systems, that how every system works, and the systems that you actually need to pay attention to. Because this is a game that you could turn the difficulty up to 11 and master everything and max roll all different stats and like crush it tacticianally like a goddamn Russian chess player. But you could also turn the difficulty to like normal or down if you hit a wall and not pay attention to some of those stats as heavily, and then still really enjoy it as a casual player.
For
And
sure.
Fextra Life does a lot of videos on builds and everything like that that really help you uh, get the most out of your playthrough with this game.
Cool.
And I think that's a really important thing to go, because those systems are so fucking complicated in some cases. Like it's ridiculous. I can't even begin to describe how
No,
the affinity maxes and like elemental damagings and like the skill points that lay themselves into like certain like charisma lending into different skill points
Yeah,
of like
yeah.
resistance and
right.
like just random
Okay,
shit.
so
But they
Now,
do a great job.
Eric,
now
please.
that being said, it's not an easy game.
Yeah.
There is a lot of strategy involved in, especially combat, how you approach a situation. So whether you try to talk your way out, you have a character who has a lot of charisma, you're going to try to talk your way out of most of the challenging combat, or you're going to try to lie your way through and let people know that, oh, maybe I'm on your side when really you're not, because you have the choice to deceive people, to intimidate
Mhm.
people, to straight up lie or be honest in their face about things. You have so many options with how you approach a situation, and depending on the choices you make and depending on how those choices roll, the game can be very challenging. Even if
Mhm.
you are taking an easier approach, the game is always going to be something that requires thought to get through.
Yeah,
So that could turn off a lot of people who just want to breeze through and
yeah,
enjoy the story,
yeah,
because you're not always going to be able to breeze through and enjoy the story. You're going to have to work for it in
yeah.
most
Yeah.
cases.
Okay, cool. So we've basically, so the game is like super in depth, right? Regarding like all of your choices, all of your options, your characters, your classes, everything else, right?
Mhm.
Now, from I guess the combat style, correct me if I'm wrong. Is it like it's more of an XCOM strategy type of
Oh,
Yeah,
style?
100%. It's
Is it?
turn-based.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
So it
turn-based.
is a turn based. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. What's it
This
called?
was a
Yeah.
great game with kids. Like I could play this game with both kids in the room, jumping off the walls, trying to kill each other. And if I just put the controller down and went to go prevent death, it was
Nothing will
fine.
happen around it.
Nothing
Yeah.
happens.
Okay. Cool.
Because unless I push a button, nothing happens.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if
Actually,
you
so
fuck up, you can reload and just redo it like a chess game. And it's not
one
a
thing
big
to
deal.
mention about that is like the entire game is moving in real time. So everything is constantly happening. You put the controller down and people in a town are moving around. Enemies on the ground are walking around, surveying an area. And so if you leave the controller for 5 minutes, some enemy might have walked up to you and started a fight with you.
Mhm.
But
Yes.
once you're in combat, it becomes turn based and time freezes around you and everything's turn based. There's also the option to just in regular play, if you wanted to, while you're not in combat, enter that turn based mode. So you can set yourself up, say, for combat, or
Ah.
if you're going to pickpocket somebody and you know that you can run away fast, but you don't know if your party is going to get stuck behind a barrel or something and they
Mhm.
might not be able to run away. And this guy who you just pickpocketed is like, hey, where somebody was in my pockets. And he'll
Mhm.
see your party members around. He'll go after them. But if you put yourself in turn based mode outside of combat, you can distance yourself from your party, have them wait far away. You go do all your illegal dealings, and then you run the fuck away
Mhm.
and then rejoin your party after. Like
Mhm.
there's so many ways you can play it, so many ways you can maneuver yourself around essentially what is a game board.
Yeah.
Very
It
cool.
That's a good way of putting it. It essentially gets the closest you could get to playing D&D in real life.
Yeah.
Like in a game as opposed to an actual real life on like a board.
I,
Very
Uh,
cool.
I will say, coming into it, having been somebody who's played a few D&D campaigns, knowing how some of the spells work, knowing the advantages and disadvantages of certain builds, and ways to sort of level up your character, what skills, what feats you might want to take, it definitely gives an advantage. But the game is built in a way where it makes the learning curve not as challenging as somebody
mhm.
jumping into D&D for the first time.
Mm,
It,
Yeah.
it
cool.
gives you a lot of hints along the way.
Very cool.
Yeah. And
Now,
if for those that don't have those hints, Fextra Life videos.
Right.
not a paid sponsorship.
Not a paid sponsorship at all.
Now,
He's just a beast.
obviously, there's the 17,000 endings and stuff like that, but I am also guessing there is an overarching story that remains the same for everyone,
Definitely.
or is it like,
No, it's definitely you have a main goal. Like
Mhm.
your main goal. So it's no secret. Like this isn't a spoiler.
yeah, it's fine.
We've already seen it in the video at
Yeah.
this point. You start off. Anyone that's played D&D before, there's a race of people called the Mind Flayers, and they are like psychic beasts of just absolute psychonic destruction. Like they're
Think
monsters.
Stranger Things.
Yeah,
Perfect.
like and like these guys have almost taken over the world many times in the past, and they've been fought back, and it's like a whole thing. But these guys now, you wake up on a Mind Flayer ship, and that's how the game starts. So, if you're considering this a spoiler already, time to jump ship, skip ahead a few
Yeah,
minutes.
this
Let's
is
go.
the first hour of your life.
Yeah, it's not a
Exactly.
spoiler.
It's really not that bad. Like you're literally watching the gameplay in the background of it. It's you're on a Mind Flayer ship and you're trying to escape, and you've been infected by a Mind Flayer tadpole, which the tadpole essentially will turn you into a Mind Flayer. But through one reason or another, they don't transform you right away. And you can tap into them for certain powers and whatever. And you can choose to not use those powers or use them for whatever potential end comes out if you do,
hmm
right? Like
hmm
there's choices. Obviously, there's probably one of the 20 different endings at the end. Like out of those 17,000, 20 endings are dependent on like whether you use those powers or not. But either way, uh, it's just so we've at this point we've talked about the extravagancies of this game.
Yeah,
Now
yeah.
let me address the fact that like if you have no interest, even if you're a partner, because you can do this game co-op, you can do this game couch co-op, you can do this game over the internet co-op up to 4 players.
Up to 4 players.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you have
So,
a
like,
4-person party.
yeah. So if at the end of the day, if you say, for example, have a significant other that you're like, they don't like video games, but this game is so much story that maybe they'll be able to get into it. You could make this and put it at a lower difficulty and like carry them through. And the amount of choices, story development, and like just it's like you're watching a TV show, realistically, with how intricate they go. And if you meet a character that you don't like, because there's so many characters. There's so many characters you can have in your party. And if you don't like one, that's what they're designed for. There's people for everybody in this game. There's some people that like Will. I don't know if you remember Will.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, he's a paladin / necromancer type of thing. I thought he was a giant wiener.
He's a warlock, I think.
Warlock, there you go. I thought he was a giant wiener. And he comes off as this like overarching, super goody two shoes, nice guy that everybody likes. I'm like, no, this guy's a bitch. Like, I'm like, I don't like him at all. So I never talked to him. I didn't interact with him. But
Same.
somebody is gonna like him. Okay, so there we go. That's why we're friends. But like, there's somebody that's gonna like that guy, and that's like, that's my boy. Like, he's in my party, ride or die. Let's go through. Because they have so many different personality types. Like Gale, I think, is universally loved by the internet and all.
Yeah.
Gale is the GOAT. He is the greatest human being in this game.
Great character, fun dialogue with him. Like,
Yeah,
the voice acting is phenomenal, and he's one of the best.
yeah. And every character has some pitfall, like where like, all right, like Gale is a wizard, but guess what? He has something going on with him that I won't give away for spoilers. That like
Steals your fucking items.
Yeah, exactly. He's got some sticky ass fingers. But that's because he's feeling a goddamn magic construct that's fueling him to make him more powerful than any wizard in the goddamn universe. So like, it's a pretty good trade, and he's really humble about it. But
ultimately, like any other character in the game, any other character, nobody is excluded from this. You don't like Wilt, you don't like Gale, you can kill them just
anytime.
Like there's I don't think I've ever played a game where there was no character that was excluded from that rule. Like, there's always a couple to progress in the story, this character can't die, so you can knock them out, but they'll always be around to progress the story further. You can kill anybody you want. One of the first missions in the first chapter of the game is you're dealing with a conflict between 2 forces. I'm not gonna spoil any of that.
That's fine.
You can say it. It's not spoiler. Druid and Orc. It's all good.
The game's been out.
You can just
you can say
fair.
Don't
and
worry.
Druid and Orcs, it's 2 factions. It's not a big deal.
But you can just walk into the Druid town the first time you get there and just kill everybody. Just kill everybody.
Yeah.
And over. It's done. And so that story arc is done. There's actually I forget his name. There's one of the tieflings who is fighting with the druids, and he's trying to give his people safe passage. They're trying to get to Baldur's Gate. You can kill him. He so much of the story, the entire game story revolves around this character. You can kill him. Just kill him straight up, and he gets replaced. You can kill his replacement. They get replaced. You can kill the replacement's replacement. They get replaced. If you don't like these people, you can keep killing them all the way down the line. But because the story needs to progress, they'll keep replacing that character for you. I don't know. I think I was reading online. I saw up to like 5 or 6 replacements of this character. I don't know if it goes further than that. Maybe you can just damage the story fully by killing them all and be like, okay, well, you clearly don't want to go down this path. So
yeah, you just skip that whole section.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, so give me now, like, give me the goods and the bads. Like, where do you guys land on like the final scores? Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Like, all in all, I think it's safe to say this is a game of the year contender.
Yeah,
without question,
easily. Yeah, 100%. I don't even like this type of game, and I know that this game is likely going to win Game of the Year.
Yes,
honestly, I would personally give it Game of the Year.
Yeah.
And I've loved a lot of games out of this year.
And I don't know if we've truly captured like how good this game is in our conversation. Like this is a game
I
that's
think you
like
did.
trying to describe Taco Bell to somebody that's never
Oh,
tasted food.
Perfection,
Yeah,
Brandon.
exactly. It's absolutely perfection. It's just like, how do you describe that crisp crunch from a nice fresh taco? Like, how do you really describe
fresh
that
ice cream.
delicious fire taco sauce? Like, it's hard. Like, you're seeing some videos here, but where it really gets you is how pulled in you get from the character development and how much you start to actually really care with this, like the characters and storyline. And like where you like even the scene we're seeing right now on screen with Shadowheart, a main character. If you just let her fucking die, you just never see her. Like, guess what? You're missing like I guess well according to the numbers, you're missing like 1/100th of the game. But like for me, that's one of the main persons I've ever dealt with in the entire game. Like
Yeah,
my story
so
is
much
around her,
can
like
revolve
everything
around
I've
that character.
played. And like I've like her and my character have been the main characters of this story, and like she can just die in the opening scenes and you'll never
Mhm.
find out what that's about. But it's not a hindrance because there's a million other characters that will give you the same experience. So in terms of replayability, there is no comparison. Amazing dialogue, no comparison. The graphics are decent. Like the graphics are not award winning,
Nothing
but they're
exceptional.
decent.
No.
Like there's nothing wrong with them. They're slightly next gen, but they're not like next gen.
Yeah, but
Like,
it definitely looks better than most large scale RPGs. Like it looks a
of course,
hell of a lot better
hell of a lot better than
than like Starfield.
anything
Nothing
close to
nothing
this
that'll
scale.
blow your
Yeah,
mind, but nothing that will make you think, this is not crisp enough, this is not good enough, this looks so last gen. Like, no,
yeah.
it's a
At the end
good
of the day,
game.
like some of the
It's
characters, if
well made.
yeah, you're gonna find characters like, hey, if this person was a real, I would totally smash. Like, and it gives you enough of that to know,
Lay off Shadowheart, buddy.
buddy, I will never. King Arthur couldn't pull me out of that woman.
But
Like, it's
but
just
to go back to your question, Mike, like
yeah.
I will say, like as far as the pros of this game, it's exactly what I think we've been kind of circling around is that you have so much free will. You can do
Mhm.
whatever you want. You can make this game whatever you want it to be. It is entirely your adventure to design and move through the way that you see fit. And the only con I can think of is you can't pick up and play this game for an hour. It's the kind of game where you sit down and it takes 3+ hours of your time each time. It's
Mhm.
a hard game to get through in that way because you need to be able to put time aside for it. It's so big and everything takes so long.
Yeah, and much to that point, I will say, like, I know I'm into my 70th hour, and that's because I tried to do as much as I could, and I still have a lot left. But I have a friend that hit level 12, which is the max level for your character, and finished the story in 40 hours because they
Really?
literally, yeah, they didn't do like they didn't explore every part of the map. They just kind of like, all right, I'm
Followed the
talking to the
story.
druids, I'm doing the druids. I'm gonna go this, I'm gonna move to the next area, I'm gonna do this. And they just bounce with the story as a natural progression.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Whereas
I
like
can't do that.
me, and I think, yeah, we're the same, where I'm like, no, no, no. I have half the map I haven't explored. So
Yeah.
I had to go and find everything. Where like moving between the acts, you have like 5 different options of storylines you could do to get out of that act that you're in. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm gonna get to the end of every single fucking one of them
I
because
think it
I
took me
have to.
40 hours to get to the end of Act 1.
Agreed. Yeah, exactly. Whereas
Yeah.
you can get out of Act 1 in like 15 hours, maybe
Gotcha.
20.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I could
So
see that. Yeah,
so
there
if
there
you
were
want,
times where I was getting close and I'm like, "Wait, this seems too conclusive. There were so many things I didn't do. Run back,
exactly.
go do everything else."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you just want to be someone that's like, honestly, it's hard to say a 50-hour playthrough is a speed run, but for this game, it is.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to go through and just follow the currents and see how it goes, you could have a good 40, 50-hour playthrough and be very happy and get an
And a
amazing
great
story.
playthrough. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you could go back and start that exact same game again and do another 40, 50 hours of playthrough, and you'll never see the same images twice.
Exactly.
Like it's insane.
And that being said, the way this game is written, the way it's acted, the way the choices work out. When I play this game a second time and a third time, I'm not going to speed run my way through it. I'm going to do each individual thing all over again just to see how they work out differently with a different character, with a different mindset. Like everything is worth doing a second time. All potentially 80 to 100 hours of it is worth doing multiple times.
Agreed. And I would love to see a final stat number on like how many hours it takes to complete this game in every single avenue. And I imagine it is like in our
17,000 endings.
Yeah. Like in our Gargonaut scale of sales and return for investments on entertainment and value, there's no, I feel like it's comfortable to say there's nothing higher than this. Game.
This is a game that I can see myself coming back to until the PS5 is essentially no longer supported. I'll play this game until PS6 comes out.
Oh, I'll play this in PSVR
over and over again.
and PS7. Like,
honestly,
I'll be this person.
Yeah.
With a pleasure suit that makes me feel the stab wounds. So like if I get stabbed, I'm like, god damn it, like I'm dying. I'm down. This game is perfect.
Amazing.
Yeah, as far as video games go, I don't think there has been a better return on investment. I don't think there's been better replayability other than a game like your Call of Duties or Rocket League.
Yeah. Speaking of
which are in different leagues, I will say.
And
those are pure popcorn. This is a masterpiece.
This is story.
Brandon, speaking of which, they just announced Lightning McQueen for Rocket League.
I need.
I
fucking love Lightning McQueen.
Might have to get back into it.
All right, so I'm guessing it's safe to say that you guys are both giving this a 10.
Not a 10, realistically. I don't think, for me.
I'll go with the Metacritic. I'll give it a 9.6.
So I'm at a 9.5 for sure.
Nice.
I don't know if I've played a 10 in a long time.
Yeah.
But no, this is definitely a 9.5 front runner for the year. And that's the other thing. Like something to be said too for scores, it's hard because even if like there are movies that I love that are terrible, and I know that they're terrible, and I'd only rate them like 4 or 5 out of 10, but I love them more than movies that are 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's subjective.
Yeah, of course it's subjective. But this game, when you talk about storyline, hard to beat because of the sheer scope and quality of it. Gameplay and mechanics, unbeatable by anything that has come out and I can never think of. Like everything about this game is top tier, perfect, realistically. So like it's hard to compete against it. Even games like obviously in the Game of the Year run, we have games like Tears of the Kingdom, which people are like, when it came out, everyone's like, well, good luck for second place. But with this year, we've seen that like, good luck, Zelda, being Game of the Year in this year with how many good games have come out. Like you have your work cut out for you. Whereas a game like this does everything that they do and more, but manages to actually have a storyline that isn't shit. And like, it's just, it does so much stuff right. It's just, so I don't know. It's just so good.
Brandon, can I ask you, if you played this on PC with the mods that are available today, which isn't to say that there weren't like 1,000 mods by the end of the first week, but with the mods available today on PC, do you think you'd give it a 10? Because I think I would.
Probably, realistically. Like, honestly, this game is pretty close to a masterpiece already. And like my only complaint is that I goofed. Much like we talked about on like earlier with Spider-Man, and Mike, sorry, I goofed in that I tried to play everything. So I gave myself game fatigue. Yeah. And then I had to pull out a little bit, right? Like
that's why I jumped into Sea of Stars, buddy. I had to step away for a minute.
That's why I jumped into Spider-Man. I'm like, I just need I'm like 70 hours plus, like I need a break. I need something else because I didn't choose, I went too deep. You know, I went too deep.
Know what I was getting into.
Exactly. I didn't realize it was a fucking Sarlacc pit. Like it's just like it's insane. So I honestly, this game could have been a 10.
Yeah.
It probably is a 10 realistically in quality because there are no complaints. There is no game better for what this game does in terms of options, replayability, everything. There isn't a better game. So it's hard not to give it a 10. but like from my own personal, like I recognize that it is a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
But it's just from my personal experience, because of the game fatigue, I have to slap that little bit extra off. That's all.
Yeah.
And like
For
the
what
game
this
fatigue.
game for what this game promises to be, it delivers on every single promise.
Yeah,
It's you couldn't ask for more from it.
Yeah.
exactly.
Nice.
But there is going to be a large audience of people that are like, this is not for me, and I will never play this game.
Nice.
Right.
Which is one of those things where you're never going to please everybody,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah. That's
But
Right. And
this could
fuck those
easily be a
people.
game. Yeah, exactly. I don't disagree. But yeah, Mike, you little bitch. But when you think about this year, which we're going to get into later on in the week when we go into our segment of Master Debaters on
Oh, get
this
ready.
year for basically being the best year in gaming history. When you go into a year like this, where you have Tears of the Kingdom, you have obviously like Baldur's Gate 3, you have Spider-Man 2, you have Diablo 4, Sea of Stars, and a copious amount of other
So
fucking
many
games that have
more.
come out. When you're comparing like the creme de la creme, this is the Olympics of gaming.
Some of the
this
best
year.
games of the decade altogether.
Yeah. So now you're looking at that, like, all right, even just easy ones. This versus Tears of the Kingdom. If you're going for game of the year, who's going to win? In my opinion, there's no contest. Baldur's Gate 3 beats Tears of the Kingdom, even though Tears of the Kingdom is an obvious front runner.
Phenomenal game.
Incredible.
Phenomenal game.
Incredible. But all of its pitfalls where it's like, oh, I wish it did this. Guess what? Baldur's Gate does that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like and it doesn't go the other way. So it's like, all right, well, this year is going to be spicy.
All right, guys. Sounds
Yeah.
good. All right. Any final thoughts? And otherwise, I'm going to pass it to Erik this time to bring us home and take us down.
Let's do it. Honestly, I think we've said everything I gotta say. I'm good.
If you have any doubts about playing this game, if you're considering it at all and are on the fence, play it. 100% play it. It is worth every dollar you spend on it. It's only digital, and make sure when you buy it digitally, you opt for the cheaper option, because they don't give you that option off the bat. You have to go searching for it. Buy it, play it. If you can't get into it in the first couple of hours, put it down. Come back in a month. Come back in 2 months. Come back in a year. The game will still be phenomenal. It'll still give you every aspect of the story, the challenge, the adventure that you wanted from it. You just need to be in the right mindset. You need to have the time for it. But if you ever thought about playing this game and you're not like Mike and you know this game is not for you, if you ever thought about it, buy it, play it. You will not regret it.
Agreed.
That's all I've got to
That's
say
really
about
well
it.
said.
Nice.
And I definitely, with a game like this, a 10 out of 10, it definitely, you're doing yourself a disservice not trying it, because you never know, just like the age-old thing as a kid. How do you know you not like it if you didn't try it? So if you try it and you don't like it, then yeah, I agree with Erik. Like 1,000%. Don't force yourself. You don't want to, like, if it's not right, it's not right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if it sounds intriguing, you have a spouse maybe or something or a friend that you want to play a game with, you can go full story mode, turn the difficulty down all the way, and just play a goddamn movie together.
Or if you want to have a D&D campaign with friends.
Yeah. You want to go balls deep with friends, turn it up to 11, get the hardest difficulty, and just get ass raped the entire game? Go for it. It'll be so much fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
No, if you were ever curious about Dungeons and Dragons and you have a group of friends who all have a PS5, or if you're all on PC and you wanted to try D&D, this would be a great intro that gives you a sort of beginner's crash course into Dungeons and Dragons.
Cool.
Agreed.
I think that's actually a great way of putting it. That actually, like that draws me, that entices me much more than like anything else. Because I do actually really do want to do a D&D campaign at some point.
So, Mike, maybe buy this game.
Honestly,
because buying this game is cheaper than D&D.
Yes. Actually, well, no, that's a whole different
topic.
But if you do buy it, we could do a Growing Up Gaming campaign where the three of us will just make characters and do like a fun playthrough.
It would be. It actually does sound like it would be pretty
Yeah.
I'm down.
Or if we can do couch co-op, then at least you could join in with one of us on the couch and join in the
Oh
campaign.
yeah, okay. Maybe
And then
maybe
one of us can do
we'll
LAN,
start there.
and then see how that goes.
Neat.
I
All
don't know
right,
how that
gentlemen.
works.
That
Yeah.
sounds good to me. But I
Yes.
think it is safe to land this plane.
Yes,
All
I
right.
think so too.
Let's land it.
We've established our front runner for Game of the Year.
Yeah, Spider-Man 2. All right, so thank you
What,
everybody.
8.5, Mike?
It actually gave it a 9. I've upped my score.
I know. I'm just razzing.
For those who did not listen to the Spider-Man 2 review, check the last episode. It was wonderful. It was awesome. Brandon hated it. I thought it was amazing. But
That's your mouth. I love Spider-Man. He's a goddamn saint. Mikey
But-
talking
I
trash.
know, I'm joking. But with that,
Yeah,
everybody,
so much.
thank you for jumping on and listening to our review of Baldur's Gate 3. Next up, coming down the pipeline, we have our first 5. I guess it's like a mini review, but let's call it our first 5 for Sea of Stars. So keeping on that RPG route, I guess a little bit different, a little bit less of a big crazy game like Baldur's Gate, but an amazing
Mhm.
one on its own right. So Eric, I'm excited to chat with you about this one. And
Oh, can't wait.
we'll get very deep into Sea of Stars. And I'm just gonna say it. Garl's the GOAT. Yeah, I said
That was fucking great.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. Garl's the king. So Brandon, I see you trying to think of something witty, but that's okay.
Oh no, I got nothing.
Oh, okay.
I was just literally just stroking my beard.
Indeed. All right, everybody. So with that, thank you all for stopping by. We love you. We appreciate you. And with that, have a good day, have a good evening, and have a good night.
And thanks for stopping by.